whether that's you trying to sell yourself to land your next job, whether that's you trying to convince your parents why your curfew should be later, whether that's you at the car dealership trying to convince the car dealer why they need to give you a discount, whatever the opportunity is, day in and day out, we are all trying to have influence over someone else's decision. We might not carry a quota, but we are selling.
Step into the world of success with your brand amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. I am very thrilled to have Rob Durant here today. Rob, we've had a few conversations and I always enjoy them. So let's talk about you getting into the business that you're in, having a great sales professionals institute, of course, the Institute of Sales Professionals, I should say, really helping people find their way in sales and doing a lot of other things that we are simpatico on.
Annika, thank you so much for having me here. It's always a pleasure speaking with you, and I'm hoping that today we can bring to your audience some things that maybe they hadn't thought of.
Yeah, I would like that very much. And you are also a professor. You wrote a book on social enablement. You are a sales professional yourself, having gone from maybe not being as invested into really finding a love and passion for it and for helping the next generation of salespeople really understand how to do it right. And of course, you have the podcast, The Digital Download, which you're the executive producer of. Yeah. So tell this audience a little bit about your background and your story and how you got into this position of being, multi-passionate really about these topics.
Thank you so much for asking. To anyone who asks, I love to start with, at my core, I'm a teacher at heart. And that's really where the intersection of all of these opportunities meet. I'm the son of a math teacher. My dad taught math in public schools for over 50 years. Even in his retirement, he's still teaching algebra at the local community college. But when it came time for me to go to college, he said to me, Rob, anywhere you want to go to school, anywhere you get into, I will pay for it unless you go into teaching. Now, I know if I was truly passionate about teaching at that time, he would have supported me there as well. And I knew what he meant by it too. He knew the struggles to raise a family as a teacher, and he didn't want that for me.
Yeah.
So instead, I went into business. But everything I've ever done, I've gravitated towards helping, mentoring, guiding, leading, training, teaching. I was tricked into my first sales job.
Yeah.
But there I found another passion. I was applying for a job with the phone company. And I had, at that point, 10 years of experience in customer service, having worked at Disney World. Disney is the company credited with inventing the field of customer service.
Oh, yeah.
So I felt pretty good about this whole job interview process. 6 weeks of interviews, batteries of tests. I finally get the call from the HR representative. Rob, we'd like to hire you as a customer service representative. Yes. But please know, Rob, there is a sales quota with this job. No! I swallowed hard and took the job anyway. But up to that point, my perception of sales was similar to the perception that I believe most people have today. Sales is evil. Sales is yucky. If sales didn't screw up somewhere, we wouldn't need customer service. Or so I thought. What I learned was the best salespeople are actually performing not much more than what adequate customer service people are doing. In my book, in order to provide adequate customer service, that is bare minimum table stakes, you need to provide three things. You need to ask questions. You need to uncover the root cause issue, and you need to present solutions to solve your customer's problem. Outstanding salespeople do four things. They ask questions, they uncover the root cause issue, they present solutions to their prospects that will solve the problem. There's just one more thing that outstanding salespeople do that most customer service people cannot bring themselves to do. Care to guess?
Bring it on.
Ask for the sale. That's it. I'm not talking about complex closes or tricking them into buying or anything like that. Simply identifying the solution and then saying, would you like to implement that? And help them implement that. Most customer service people cannot bring themselves to do that. And I can say that because that was me. Because I was personalizing it. I can't afford this. Therefore, you can't afford this. Therefore, in order to provide you with excellent customer service, I won't even tell you about it.
Huh. Wow.
That could not have been more wrong. And when I encounter customer service people today who are faced with a similar situation, I challenge them. I give them a little poke in the eye. I say, you're doing terrible customer service. You want to cut somebody to the quick? You want to really hurt a customer service professional? Tell them they're doing a bad job at customer service. We in customer service, the only thing we care about is helping others. Back to what I was saying about my passion. And then for me to tell them, you're not helping them, you're hurting them. Man, that is an eye opener. But I explain it to them like this. If you know what the solution is and you are withholding it, that's bad service. I'm not telling you to overcome objections. I'm not telling you to trick them into buying. I am saying we only speak with adults. We only speak with people that have a problem. If you've identified the problem and you offer them the opportunity to address that problem, let them. If they say no, they say no. If they say yes, it's because they value the solution to the problem more than they value the dollars that you're saving. Mm-hmm. And with that, I had that change in approach, change in mindset in my own sales career, and it took off very well for myself. And I've since gone on to explain this to a number of others in customer service and those in sales that really come from a background of a helper, not just come from a customer service background, but some of the best salespeople I've encountered are those that are helpers at their core. Teachers, we have emergency personnel, we have all sorts of professions where they had a background in service, nurses, for example, and then come to a profession where they are now responsible for carrying a quota and they're a little bit overwhelmed. I can help, but I can't close. You can't close if you don't ask. But if you do ask and they still say no, that's fine because they know that what you did was try to help them. And while they might not want that solution right now, they're going to remember you for being there for them, for wanting to help them. And they might not remember the words that you said, but they'll absolutely remember the feeling you left them with.
Right. Yeah. What was that moment when you realized that you were great at customer service, but you weren't asking the question? Did somebody else have to point that out to you? Is that just a realization you came to?
It was a realization that I came to. And as I was working for the phone company, the very first call that I took just so happened to be one of those where we had a laundry list of things and I'm reading through the script and they said, yeah, I want that. I was floored that they said, yes, I want that to the first thing. And I had a list of about 10 things. And they said, yes, I want that. And yes, I want that. And it suddenly dawned on me that I never would have purchased those things. But how dare I not give them the option to do that? At the end, they said, well, why don't you just have a bundle with all of these things? I got off of that call and my trainer turned to me and said, here's the memo. We just put a bundle together with all of those things. So it was that confluence of events that really was that like dawn moment. And they said, I put it out there and he said, yes. What's the worst that he could have said to me?
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Well, if it was no, it was either because they really didn't need it or I didn't identify a problem they had where this was the solution to it. In either case, no is okay.
I think, though, when we think about entry-level sales jobs, we think about customer service roles. We often think about people overseas. We think about people who have, like you said, a list, and they're trying to meet their goals and objectives, not our goals and objectives. So they're not coming from that perspective of giving care and really trying to solve something. And I also am seeing this in, now obviously a lot of people automate their funnels and their messages, but then a person still has to get on the phone to close the sale, but sometimes that person isn't really equipped to do so. So I'd love to hear a little bit more because you're really elevating this profession and you're saying, no, it's not just what we think of as like the person who calls us when we're trying to eat dinner, like, the calls we don't answer on our phone because we don't know the number.
Right. Yes, with the Institute of Sales Professions, we have one goal. That goal is to elevate the profession of sales. That's the short answer. The long answer is to elevate the perception of the profession of sales.
Yeah.
But you're right. If you ask somebody what they think of sales, they're going to think of all of the negatives. Mm-hmm. My contention is that most people in sales, like most people in general, are good and mean well. It's only those outliers that really not only lie out, they stick out. And what we're doing is trying to have those of us that are well-intentioned in the sales profession recognize that while those tactics might work in the short term, they're not going to be beneficial long term. And in fact, speaking of confluences, those tactics, mass emails, cold calling, and so on, especially prevalent in the SaaS industry, software as a solution industry. My contention is that they were just in the right place at the right time, and just about any playbook would have worked then. And by that, I mean, software as a solution, software as a subscription was groundbreaking when it came out. And organizations that were putting forth SaaS solutions had nothing but greenfield ahead. Now we're in a market where it's saturated. I don't necessarily need your solution. I already have someone else's solution. It's not about just the greenfield. It's not about harvesting opportunity because we have strip mined or whatever the term is for crop strip mining. What we need to get back to is planting seeds, cultivating, and then harvesting. And that's what those that are newer to the profession especially have never been exposed to. It's just make more calls, send more emails, basically harvest more. Well, there's nothing to harvest because you haven't planted seeds. I like to remind people, nothing gets done, nothing happens except with and through other people. So if you are using automation and spam to try to entice me to buy, what is the likelihood that I'm going to engage? And the further you go up in terms of the sales deals, when you go from a transactional sale to maybe some heft to it, a sale to a mid-market organization or a sale to an enterprise organization. The sellers in those organizations, your tenured professionals in those organizations, have known this all along. They've known it's all about the relationships. What they don't know generally is how to use today's tools to optimize that. So at one end of the spectrum, we have the tenured professionals that are at a loss when it comes to how do I leverage today's social media tools to create more opportunity. They know how to network. They just don't know how to network digitally.
Right.
The other end of the spectrum, those newer in the profession, they know all about every social media tool that's out there, even the ones that just launched 10 minutes ago. They're on them. They know all about them. What they don't know how to do is have a conversation with somebody. And they don't know how to start that conversation through these social media channels. And that's where the social enablement playbook, the book that I wrote, comes into play. It teaches people how to leverage the social media platforms to drive more conversations and drive more opportunity. Networking is great. I love networking, which is not something I used to say. In fact, I used to hate networking.
Why is that?
Well, I was of the mindset that success in life should be based on what I know.
Okay. See where you're
Success
going
in
with
life,
this.
yeah. Success in life should be all about what I know, not who I know. I hate nepotism.
Mm-hmm.
I hate the good old boys network. And I really have trouble putting myself out there in social situations. I'm an introvert, but I have things that I want to accomplish, and nothing happens except with and through other people. So networking, but it's not just about who you know either, because you could know everyone, but if you don't know anything, are you someone worth knowing? Success in life is about who knows you for what you know.
Yeah. That's such a good point. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. My boyfriend is a filmmaker, and he was talking to me about the early days of his career and how he's an introvert. Doesn't really push himself out. So people don't really know he has enough people who know what he's done that he has worked consistently, but maybe not the kind of things that he was doing when he was starting his career or the kinds of things he'd like to continue pursuing. But he also hasn't put himself out there. People don't, in the broader world, don't know who he is, what he does. And so that's where social media comes in, whether you hate it or love it, platforms, depending, of course, on what your brand, product, or service is, who you are. And that's where advertising comes in. That's where PR comes in. That's where all of these work together to share your story, your journey, what you know with other people in different ways.
Exactly. What you know. Social media is often misunderstood. We think of it as a media channel. Let me put all about me. Let me broadcast all about me. I'm a blowhard. I'm a braggart. No. Let's put the social in social media. When you're putting yourself out there, put yourself out there in a way that helps others. Your boyfriend, for example, in the film industry, I have no doubt he knows more things about film and the film industry than I could ever know. But I am an aspiring filmmaker, maybe an aspiring YouTuber. And the concepts that he could share, the ideas that he could present would be incredibly valuable to me.
Right.
Because he knows these things and he's not talking about, hey, here's the latest thing that I did. Hey, here's me doing this. Hey, here's me doing that. No, he's being helpful with his expertise. He's being generous with his expertise and sharing that. It is hard. I get that. Everyone's worried about putting themselves out there, myself included. Here's the reality. First of all, nobody is paying attention to you nearly as much as you think that.
Exactly.
And the second thing is something my mother once taught me. And I don't know if I've shared this with you before. Maybe I have. My mother once said to me, Rob, you have no right to know what other people think about you. And I thought about that for a minute. If I have no right to know what other people think about, then how could I possibly care? And if I can't care, I certainly can't worry.
Yeah.
Not everybody likes mint chocolate chip ice cream. They're wrong.
Right.
It's the best ice cream out there, but not everybody likes mint chocolate chip ice cream.
Yeah.
That's okay. Enough people like it that it's carried in a lot of different places.
Right.
I don't need to be attractive to every mint chocolate chip ice cream lover out there, every ice cream lover out there. I just need to have conversations with enough people in the sphere that I'm hoping to have some influence, that it, as you were saying about your boyfriend, keeps the work flowing. I am not going to be the next capital I influencer on TikTok or Instagram. And I don't want that. I'm not even going to be that micro influencer, just tens of thousands of followers. I don't need that either. What I need is to communicate with people that are like-minded and, even better, have similar values and aspirations, others who are generous and kind as well. And that's most people. It's just hard to figure that out if you don't get to know them.
I want to ask about, because you started in customer service, customer experience, moved into sales, management, champion, a lot of different words. You also taught high school and middle school during this time.
I did.
And then went back into different roles. What prompted you to go teach those levels? What prompted you to leave that and then start teaching university and decide to go out on your own and have your own organization versus working to help other people build their revenue?
Sure. So I was with the phone company for about a decade. The economy had some significant turmoil, and I left the phone company taking a buyout in lieu of a layoff. And that's when I sat down and said, well, what do I want to do next? And I'd always loved teaching. This was my opportunity to pursue it. And my dad could not have been any more supportive. He was my biggest champion in that regard. But I had already had a significant career. I knew what I was getting into. And I loved it. I was teaching math and business at the high school level. And I thought I was going to ride off into the sunset as a math teacher. In the summer of my second year of teaching, I had a recruiter reach out to me with an opportunity in business. She was offering me the chance to interview with a startup. Now, to this point, I'd never worked with a startup. I'd never had any contact with a startup. But it turns out startup was one of the 3 things on my career bucket list. My career bucket list was teaching. Ooh, I already checked that one off. I was consulting until I learned that the big consultancies, that typically means flying out on a Sunday night and flying back on a Friday night.
Yeah.
Not really conducive to the lifestyle I wanted to lead. Yeah. Very family focused, and that was not. So probably not pursuing that one anytime soon. The third was to work for a startup. How often does your bucket list come knocking on your door? I figured, let me see where this leads, because the world always needs math teachers. I can always come back and teach math if that's what it ends up being. But it didn't. I got the job and I got the bug. I love working for startups because with startups, again, back to that greenfield analogy, there is so much ahead of you that you can build and do. And you never hear things like, well, that's not how we do it here because they haven't done it yet.
Right. Yeah.
So that was what led to the transition away from teaching. About 2 years ago, after I had worked with startups for a while, after I had decided to actually go into consulting, but not with a big agency, just on my own, an opportunity to teach at the university level presented itself, and I jumped on it. I was touring colleges with my daughter, and one of the schools that she went to, I ran into an old friend from the phone company. She was teaching at the university. He said, "Oh, you have my dream job. That's what I think I'm going to do when I retire." She said, "Why are you waiting until you retire?"
Exactly.
"What do you mean?" "Well, we have openings now for adjunct." And I spoke with her, and one thing led to another, and I was teaching there. That opportunity provided an opportunity to transfer now to teaching as an adjunct at Northeastern University in their marketing department. And I think I've found my permanent home.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. And in the meantime, especially as adjuncts, they like us to still have our feet in industry, of course,
Yes.
because I know a lot of universities, the model is that the adjuncts are the ones who are teaching a lot of the curriculum, quite frankly. But we're bringing real practical application, which I think is so important. So you're teaching. In the midst of this, you also start the podcast and the show, which you've been executive producer, host, panelist, all of those different areas. And then you also, you've had a couple of different shows. And then this is where you also then decided, oh gosh, what else can I do? Right? So
Sort of. So success is about who knows you for what you know.
Mhm.
And one thing leads to another. The digital download and the work that I had done there for about 4 years provided me with an opportunity to meet people who are interested in starting another podcast. We do Sales TV Live, and I'm still an active player with that one. And that led to an opportunity to work with the Institute of Sales Professionals, which is a UK-based organization that has been in existence for about a decade. And they are just now trying to make their entry into the US. And they have capped me to spearhead that.
Yes.
Now, if you had asked me 5 years ago when we were just starting the digital download, hey, do you see yourself, with this opportunity? Heck no. That opportunity wasn't something that even existed, let alone existed for me. That's why all of these serendipitous, lucky opportunities have come my way, because I'm trying to put myself out there to have people know me for what I want to be known for. And in the process, these opportunities have come about. Is it luck? Absolutely. But you know what luck is, right? Luck is the intersection of opportunity and preparation. I didn't know what I was preparing for. I don't know what I'm preparing for today that's going to lead to tomorrow. I still don't. But I know that doing these things is preparing me for that next thing. And I know that if I'm putting myself out there more, being social, not being media driven, then I am going to increase the chances that luck happens.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's just, it's thrilling.
It really is. And I've had a number of those things happen over the last couple of weeks and could not agree with you more. It's all about the timing, the intention, right? I set certain goals, and then all of a sudden now people are here that are going to help fulfill those goals. And
Exactly.
and I might not have known what exactly that looked like to fulfill the goal, right? I just knew I had certain goals and markers. Yeah. So you're focused on all these different areas. They all tie in, of course, to marketing and sales. So what has the experience been bringing ISP over from the UK? How much have you had to market or sell being a member of the organization?
It's all about selling it, really. It's right now we are in a brand awareness phase. Nobody knows we exist. Nobody in the US knows we exist, really. The dribs and drabs. Even in the UK, we can do more in terms of brand awareness. And while we are launching here in the US, we're also launching in Canada. We're also launching in Australia, New Zealand. We will soon be launching in India. We may be launching in France in the very near future. It is a global initiative. But how do you get the word out there? Well, you mentioned, there's advertising. We could certainly do that. But advertising is a way of getting the attention of your ideal target audience that may or may not be relevant to them at the time.
Right.
What I'm doing is more social enablement. I am helping people know me for what I want to be known for. I am learning more about them for what they want to be known for. And in the process, I'm letting them know the ISP exists for this reason, to help the profession of sales.
Mm-hmm. And what does somebody get by becoming a member?
Sure. We focus on the 3 C's. We focus on content, certification, and community. Right now, there's a lot of content out there vis-a-vis sales and improving your sales performance. We are contributing to that. In terms of certification, there's not much. There are some certifications that you can go through from this software vendor or that training organization, but there's no governing body that says, yes, this is rigorous and this is relevant. The ISP is unique in that regard, in that there is actually a governing body in the UK that oversees these things. It's called Ofqual, the Office of Qualifications and Standards. I don't know, I'm not in the UK. I just know that the shorthand, Ofqual, is the governing body that audits the ISP annually and ensures that we are putting together a framework that is robust and rigorous. And with that, we have built a formal set of standards for sales and sales training. So our content and our certification lead up to community.
Nice.
As I said, I believe most people are good. And I believe most salespeople are good. I believe good salespeople want to connect with and learn from and interact with other good salespeople. And while we're putting out content and while we're having these certifications, what we really want to do is build more of the community, both digitally, globally, as well as in the real world, locally. So we're doing things like partnering with colleges and universities. We are working with them to establish pockets of ISP sponsored events and just other community building activities in the real world.
Yeah, fantastic. And I will say certifications are so big right now, right? Even more than, especially for people who are thinking about their next step or they need to skill up in some area. They see that, oh, I still need a solid background in understanding how to be a good sales. It doesn't matter if they're going to be AI tools or not. As you know, we still have to have the human element, the human touch. And I will argue that until the cows come home. And you know how big a fan I am of all of the AI stuff. But being able to show that, yeah, I've studied it, I've done the work to make myself better, you can't beat that. You can't beat that. I'm, getting my master's. I teach grad school. I'm thinking about my PhD, but I'm also getting certifications. from different, because I want to continue learning about different things that I may or may not go directly into, but I should at least know about them. And I should have that background and that base for the stuff that I'm doing, the stuff I'm going to do in the future.
Would you want to go to a doctor that didn't have a certification?
Oh.
Would you really value a lesson from a teacher that didn't have some sort of formal credentialing? You may or you may not, but there are standards that various industries have in place right now. There aren't any for sales. And that's what we're looking to change.
Yeah.
And I want to be clear. Is my intention that everyone who is in sales must be certified? No. It's my intention that those who choose to pursue certification are raising their hand saying, I choose to be a professional in my chosen career. And I choose to formally notify others that I am, in fact, a professional. I look forward to the day where nobody else is tricked into sales.
Yeah. Very much so. So going on the website, people can learn about membership. They can learn about different networks and professional development opportunities and all the other good stuff. Fantastic.
And that's the-isp.org, the-isp.org.
Is there anything else that you'd like this audience particularly to think about when it comes to the world of sales and the future world of work and how we can continue? Because you and I both are teachers at heart and want to help propel all of the generations, right, into success and in a meaningful way that meets with their values. So what other advice would you impart on the audience today?
I'll leave with one last thought. Dan Pink put it best. He wrote a whole book about it. To sell is human. In that book, he shares that these days, 9 out of 10 people are in some type of sales role. And that 10th person probably is too, and they just don't know it. Now, I won't give away the whole book, but I will say this. He takes some liberties in expanding the definition of sales to really mean to have influence on someone else's decision. But that makes a very long book title. To have influence on someone else's decision is human, doesn't work. But we are all in sales. Whether that's you trying to sell yourself to land your next job, whether that's you trying to convince your parents why your curfew should be later, whether that's you at the car dealership trying to convince the car dealer why they need to give you a discount, whatever the opportunity is, day in and day out, we are all trying to have influence over someone else's decision. We might not carry a quota, but we are selling.
Yeah. Fantastic. Was rolling through lots of different examples as you were saying that. And do you have a favorite quote, mantra, verse, poem, family motto that you'd like to leave us with today?
I like what Walt Disney said when he was asked, what do you do here? The context was, at this point, he had the studios built, he had the parks built, he had a lot going on. And someone pointed out, you have specialists doing this, you have animators doing that, and so on and so forth. What do you do here, Mr. Disney? And his answer was, I like to think of myself as a bumblebee, going from flower to flower, bringing pollen to everywhere I go. That's how I think of myself these days. In all of these various pursuits that I'm going through, I love the opportunity to cross-pollinate ideas. And I love the opportunity to connect with others who are doing the same.
Yeah. Well, I always love our conversations, Rob. You know, I'm not in sales, although I do agree that everything you do is really sales. But I always find a lot of value in our conversations, and everyone is a little bit different. I was looking back through notes of some of our previous conversations as well. And you've shared even more today, which I really appreciate, and shared it with the audience. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. It's been my absolute pleasure. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise. And of course, I will have links to the organization in the show notes. And I encourage everybody to click through and learn more about the initiatives and whatever stage you're in, if you're at the beginning stages of your business, if you are entry-level sales, if you have sold companies and exited, there's probably a role for you in here somewhere, whether it is as an advisor and somebody helping based on your experience, or being able to learn and go through certification and have that one more thing to put on your LinkedIn as a resource and a skill set that you have. So, Rob Durant, thank you again so much for being here. And I look forward to continuing our conversations. And thank you to everybody who's watching this episode or listening to it. I'll be back again with another amazing guest to share their journey, their story, and some inspiration for you very shortly. Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbandamplified.com.